Secret friends, unite!
Welcome to the Secret Friends Unite podcast, episode 438. This is your guide to the geek side, and I am one of your hosts, Todd Oxtra, from beautiful Savage, Minnesota. I am a survivor of the University of Wisconsin, which I just visited, taking my son on a college tour. Very fun time. I take back everything I said about everyone from Wisconsin except for the Packers. But Charlie Carden is on a trek at Star Trek Vegas. He is there. He's on a roundabout visiting the country, every place around the sun. So he is not here with us this week. So Charlie, safe travels as you come back for next week. But we are joined by a friend who's talked about comic books, video games, and all things geek. He's a big Turtles fan, and that's why it's so great to have him on, because our big part of the show will be TMNT, Mutant Mayhem, this week. As I've just seen the movie, we'll be going on. That'll be our big Thunderdome topic. But at this point, John, how are you doing?
Hey, Todd, thanks for having me. Cowabunga, dude.
Cowabunga indeed. You know, it never goes out of style. Bart Simpson stopped saying Cowabunga, but the Turtles don't.
Yeah, I know. You know what? I just realized, and probably skipped this into the review, but like, I can't remember if they said Cowabunga in the movie.
Oh, absolutely.
Did I miss it? I think I might have missed it.
If you did, I'll tell you where it happened when we get into spoilers about the movie. But yes, they indeed did say Cowabunga. I think it was kind of like Cyborg saying booyah. You just got to do it. No matter if it's like the R-rated version of Cyborg, you just got to do it.
You got to have it.
Yeah, I'm assuming they did it in the Michael Bay produced movies.
They did do it in the Bay one. Yes, they did do it in the Bay ones. And I will get into the Bay ones.
That version. Yeah, if you're going to. Yeah, exactly. I don't remember Cowabunga being said in TMNT Last Ronin, though.
No, definitely not. I don't see that. That was the mood would not strike right there.
Yeah, it's like the difference between like the cartoon versus like the source material and going there. Totally makes sense. But very good. This is going to be a very fun episode. So this is going to be a fun journey. But before we get into the meat of the show, just want to say, as a reminder, it is day 99 of the writer's strike and day 30 of the actor's strike. We support the creative bodies that make everything we watch awesome. And we want those folks to get their value paid in what they earn. If you want to support those actors and writers, you can donate in different ways, but we have donated at Secret Friends Unite and the entertainmentcommunity.org site. You can go there. They have a fund for writers and actors that not only during the strike, but it'll also help actors who are struggling and help them get money to make their bills paid as they want to pursue careers in the entertainment arts. So there you go. Really no updates except for the writers did meet with the AMPTP, I think is the name of the group, and nothing happened. So it's scary that they're basically trying to wait them out, which is just a bad deal.
It's absolutely ridiculous. These greedy fat cats just, they want to wait them out. Like, you don't need any more money, you studio heads. You don't, just give the people what they need. Let them continue to write the magic. You're not going to generate AI movies.
No.
That's frustrating.
No, and I've seen some episodes of things that were bad enough that were written by humans. The AI is just going to make it even worse at that point. Yeah. And I did hear something about the WB exec said, we've saved $100 million by not making products. I'm like, that's a bad thing, because if you're not making things, eventually you'll not have anything to actually make money off of in the future.
Yep.
So
that's right.
We'll see how it goes.
When will they learn? When will they learn
stuff?
Yep.
Exactly. That's the big part. When will they learn? Apparently they only learn every 15 years when they have to go back to strike.
Yeah, pretty much.
Pretty bad news. Oh, well.
Yeah.
Yeah, but in better news, we want to thank the Patreons that make this show possible, all of our Patreon content possible, but also support the show too. If you're not a Patreon, folks, you can check out a free 1-week trial of our Patreon content. And we actually just released the Last Ronin Patreon episode of comics, Oh my goodness, I'm blanking on the name of our show, the Spinner Rack. We did. John, you were on that with Sean Capri. We did that. We did a video and audio. It's now free to everyone. So that's what we want to do. We want to make the stuff exclusive to Patreons at first, but then release it for everyone to enjoy. So that's out there. And you can listen to John talk about, and myself and Sean talk about The Last Ronin. And then if you would like to be one of these cool, hip people, like our best buds, Jamie Prinky, and our BFFs, Sean, Stella, and Henry Nias, Missy Merchant, and Andy Milken at the BFF level. So thank you for being Patreons. And by the way, if you are a Patreon listening to this right now, please stick around and listen to more great content we'll have for you in the future. So now that the business is complete, John, we get into the first fun part of the show, and that is We Got This Covered. Yep. December 12th, 1978 graces us with a cover of the comic book called The Invaders. This is a Marvel comic book that was available for 35 cents. And this focused on Marvel characters set in World War II. So there were Marvel characters prior to, I believe it was Timely was the name of the comic, actually, where Submariner, you had Human Torch, who was actually an android, Captain America, and a few others were the first Marvel characters, and they fought in World War II. They decided to bring these characters back in that setting and tell more stories in that. And we're graced with this cover specifically, and it's introducing the lovely but lethal Lady Lotus, plus the revengeful return of U-Man, the Nazi from Atlantis. They're looking at our heroes in a, I guess it'd be a crystal ball. So John, you see this cover of this comic. What do you think?
Yeah. It definitely reminds me of a product of its time. That's for damn sure. It's very vibrant. It looks like if I were reading this at this time, it looks like it's kind of what will our heroes do now type of comic, like this is going to be a big one. This is going to be serious. So this looks like it'd be if I was in that time. I'm not much for these type of comics, but if I was in that time, I'd figure that this would be epic.
Yeah, I'm not sure who Lady Lotus is, but I always love the alliteration. Everything has to rhyme. You've got the lethal Lady Lotus. Yeah. And I didn't know the Nazis had infiltrated Atlantis, so that's something to know, I guess.
Yeah, right. They're Nazis everywhere. You can't stop them.
No. Poor Nazis. They try their hardest, reaching out to every community that they can influence to take on the Allies. Did not work. Thank you, Submariner, for holding Atlantis accountable and keeping Nazis out.
Yep.
Well, very good. Well, that is it for the intro of the show. Now it's time to turn to our gal pal, our senior news correspondent. So without further delay, Madam Webb, take it away.
Now it's time for Madam Webb's Rumors and News. Take it away, boys.
Thank you, Madam Webb. Madam Webb, we keep bringing these Canadians back, and I believe, you have dual citizenship with Canada. I believe it was revoked at one time because apparently you tried to pawn off fake loonies, and you called them loonies, but you removed one of the O's or something. It was very weird, very unprofessional, Madam Webb, but you redeemed yourself. You found the counterfeit ring of loonies, and you turned them over to the Mounties. I believe all is good in the world of Canadian currency now. So with that, we get into our first story. This is a new season of the MCU's, I think it's the first sequel series we've gotten for the MCU.
Yes.
And that is Loki.
That's right. Yeah.
We're getting a season 2. And as we ended Loki season 1, Loki essentially ended up in a separate timeline where Kang had taken over the TVA. Selfie had killed Kang, or that version of Kang that we saw. And that's kind of started the whole multiverse of madness is the best way to put it. So now Loki is kind of a man out of time because we know his fate in the real MCU. And he's suffering essentially time issues.
Time shifting. It was like time shifting, I think they called it.
Yeah, and he's just trying to find a way through. He's back with Owen Wilson, and it's a buddy cop movie, essentially a buddy cop series. We've got Lee Hwang Ki Hua Kwan, geez, I'm bad at pronouncing things, is joining in a new role, which is great. And we've got other characters returning, which is awesome as well. At this point, we are seeing Jonathan Majors. We weren't sure if we would or not, even though he was shown a couple months ago in the first time we saw Loki season 2. At this point, don't know how far, how big his role is in this, but we know he's got legal troubles, and it's been Marvel trying to do kind of a pussyfoot around that and still move their storyline forward. So with that, John, what did you think of this trailer, and what's your thoughts on Loki as a whole?
I've been on quite the fatigue of MCU stuff as of late. So Secret Invasion, I watched 20 minutes of the first episode and I realized I didn't need to watch it anymore. It looks like it was the right thing to do based on the things I've heard. And I don't remember, I can't even remember what's been coming out. I remember Guardians was amazing, that anything that's not trying to shoehorn so much canon and exposition, I find is always good. And that's why things like Guardians are great. Now with Loki, that's kind of in between both, right? Where, it is setting up a lot of things, but it does live in its own little world. Personally, Loki is one of the best shows that they've had. I've enjoyed the other shows as well, but they're not great, but I like them. Like, for example, I loved Moon Knight because I loved that character, but I know that the show had rocky things. I loved Miss Marvel, but I loved more the actress and the character. The whole show was rushed. I love She-Hulk because, again, I love the actress and it was just funny, but there's a lot of rocky things about it. So they all have, bad things, but Loki is the one where I felt is solid and you're looking forward to it every single week. So watching this trailer, it looks like they're just doubling down on everything. It looks bonkers in every single way. It looks bigger and better, just like any sequel series should be. I thought that this was going to be nothing, original Loki series. But it is, to me right now, it's the best thing that they have going on. Other than the Marvels Part 2, the Marvels movie that's coming out, I don't know what else MCU I'm looking forward to other than this. So I'm very excited for it. What about you? What did you think of the trailer?
I like it because I think it really hones in of what I liked about the first Loki season, which was different viewpoints on different eras of time, different versions of Loki. We've only, in this so far, I don't know how many versions of Loki we'll get, but we got a lot of surprises in the first season. It was like the crocodile Loki. We got the traditional hams, the suit from the 60s. I
have so much fun with it.
Oh yeah, I'm hoping we get more of those, which would be fantastic. Maybe an animated Loki would be kind of cool. Just mixing in mixed media as well would be neat, or a comic book version, kind of like Spider-Verse. I think about that, how they tackle different mediums. I think that'd be awesome. And they are limited, of course, in the MCU TV series. We know budget, who they can bring in outside of that. So I think they've done a good job of they're doing their own thing in their own pocket, and it will have implications. But that's not what their main focus is. It's really telling a good story. And I always think that's where if you do that, then you're in a good spot. It will be interesting to see, because the Sylvie, character, looks like she's still going to be a part of this. And we know there was a relationship between her and Loki. And we'll see where they go with that as well. I think this is going to be probably 6 episodes. It's coming out October 6th. There's nothing else Marvel in the meantime. Marvel has struggled, like you said. I have had a handful of the Marvel shows I've liked, but Secret Invasion, I think, was the biggest one that showcased they spent a lot of money and it didn't work for anybody. I've yet to hear anybody that said they cared about it, or the fact that they said, if you told me in 2017 that we get Sam Jackson in a show and I could care less about it, you'd be joking with me. And that's exactly what's happened.
Right.
Yeah, which
I
is
agree,
just crazy. Yeah. So I am hopeful that we are going to get a repositioning of the Marvel content. I know we're getting Echo as well, which is being just dropped. All episodes on one day is happening. I think that's a series where if they thought about it, they would have never greenlit. But they were kind of like, we're launching Disney Plus. We need all hands on deck, a million things. And I think that was a wrong approach. Just don't make everything. If you have a character who's popular, bring her in again to maybe another show or layer her into the MCU. She doesn't necessarily need 6 episodes of a show. So we'll see how this goes.
I mean, prove us wrong, but like, a lot of these, I mean, some of the greatest movies they have were all about, obscure characters. I mean, Iron Man wasn't obscure, but he was definitely low key, and now not low key, but low key, and now he's one of the biggest ones, right? So they've at Guardians of the Galaxy, every single Guardian, like nobody even heard of that team before. So they definitely can take obscure characters and make them into something, but it does feel like they are stretching at things. Like, I guess Echo is to kind of tie in with Daredevil, but it's just so weird to watch a show, not even weird, like frustrating to watch a show and you see like, oh, there's that character, and then they're getting their own show. Why? Like how Agatha's getting her own show. Why? What do we need that for? We don't need that, man. Come on. I mean, like, maybe it'll be fun, maybe it won't, but it just seems unnecessary. But how else can you stretch it out, right?
Yeah, especially when you talk about Daredevil, a character that is tied to Echo, but most likely this Daredevil that is now part of the MCU has never met this Echo, so it's just very clunky. We got we've got Kingpin showing up, who I don't know his past with. It's so weird, and because we got the version of Daredevil we got seems to become a different headspace, a different, which we got in She-Hulk. So I'm a little bit like flummoxed how they get these pieces together. And the longer they go with the MCU and everything has to connect, like I said, I feel bad for the writers that have to balance all of that when they get a project. So
exactly, I'm sure it's a little frustrating. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. But we have a trailer, John, that when I saw this, I'm like, oh, wow, this is a thing. And, we're going deep into the, is it a joke or is it a real thing? And so we are getting a movie called Slaughterhouse. And the Gizmodo title of this article says, Slaughterhouse looks like Cocaine Bear with a sloth. I don't know. The title kind of writes itself. I watched the trailer. You watched the trailer. It's kind of just as it advertises itself with this title. You've got a sloth killing people. Not what I've picked for a killer animal, but you know what? Who expects a sloth?
My whole thing with the trailer is that I was expecting the sloths are slow. This sloth was making too quick of moves on people, so I'm like, all right, this is a problem here. This is I'm already losing my logic. I draw the line at the sloth going too quick to kill people. He can kill people. It's just I think he's just doing it too quick. but my problem is just that, like, here we are again. Oh, formula worked. Do it again. Oh, come on, guys. I mean, they've been doing these kind of B movies for a while, but now it's hit more of a global scale. I remember years and years and years ago, I remember watching a movie called Thanksgiving, and it was about a killer turkey. And it's exact same concept, but it wasn't in theaters. It was just came out straight to DVD. But, with the success of movies like The Meg and like Sharknado and all these things, like, people want this kind of stuff. And it's fun. I watched Cocaine Bear. I thought it was going to be a little bit more sillier. It was, but I wasn't expecting it to be what it was exactly. And I left okay with it. Kind of wish I just waited until I watched it at home. But this kind of feels the same vibe, and hopefully they're able to do something to differentiate it. But, this trend is only going to last so long.
Yeah, I also walked away from Cocaine Bear like I was in a mind like, oh, this is just going to be crazy, weird, but funny, humorous. And to your point, there was some elements I'm like, that just didn't work. Or what were they doing? The tone was a little off, and it was a little bit more grotesque than I expected at times. Like,
yeah.
Oh, that was a little more in your face. But then sometimes the way that people reacted was a little bit off. And I that tonality of it was a little bit, I don't know, a hot mess. And I'm wondering if this one is just like, it's a joke title. People will check it out just for that.
Of course.
I mean, there's even in the trailer, one person actually says, "So we're in a slaughterhouse," and the one person like just even reacts like, "Oh, come on!" So I'm like, they're in on a joke.
Of course, you have to be,
the
right?
joke is, yeah.
Yeah, you have to be in on it. You can't just ignore that.
No, I mean, it's kind of like we've seen other things like that. Like, and then we did have like the Winnie the Pooh film, The Blood and Honey, that we've talked about on the show. Like, I've never seen it. I have no desire to, but it is kind of like going that extra mile of like camp plus something that's unexpected. Can you make it work? I don't know. I mean, I don't know if this is a trend we want to happen, but to your point, I think in the days of, directed DVD or going to Blockbuster and there's those movies like you've never seen it before. The cover though, like, oh, this cover looks pretty good. I'll rent that. And I don't know if those days are over though.
Yeah. I miss those days.
So
I mean, now it's just going to the theater and you got to spend a lot more to
this
do
one's
it,
coming
right?
out at the end of this. Yeah, I mean, it's hard because everybody knows what every movie is these days. There's no surprises because there's a million trailers, million internet resources. So it's really hard to surprise people with like a hidden gem or something that, you know, comes out of the blue like Killer Clowns from Outer Space. There's just not as many out of the blue surprises that just end up to be like cult classics. But that one's coming out August 30th in theaters, which is surprising. A Labor Day weekend release. That's, well, it's actually the weekend before. So, but still, that's pretty brave when no one's actually going to the movies for something like that. And they didn't push it to like end of September, which is an odd decision.
I feel like with certain movies, if there's nothing else going on that weekend, like if there's no other movies coming out, then doing it is great because there are people that just love to just go to the movies, right? And they'll just watch whatever's new, apparently. So you have something like, oh, there's a new movie out. Well, there's nothing else that's new out. I'm just going to go watch that. It's a long weekend. Why not? So I think that's how they try to capitalize on that kind of stuff.
Okay, we'll see how this goes. I'll be watching the box office. We do a annual summer box office wager in our group, and it's been interesting to see what's done well this summer and what has not. So we'll see how that goes. Maybe it's another Sound of Freedom, as they would say, in that world of weird movies that are doing better than expected. But with that, we are getting some casting rumors, John. You know, as we talked about the MCU. We are getting a ton of content that I would say is very obscure at this point. A lot of characters that are not core what you think of the big parts of the MCU or Marvel is. And one part that's being added and actually has a movie that's been announced and kind of a release date that may or may not happen depending on when things happen. But we are getting casting rumors about Fantastic Four. Fantastic Four is a heritage Marvel group. It's really the first family of Marvel, and they've had random success with essentially one Fox duo that came out, and then you also had the a more recent Fox movie that came, I think, on 2016 that did not do well at all. So this third time's the charm is what they're hoping for. But we are getting Vanessa Kirby, who was last seen in Mission Impossible. She's a trafficker of things with Tom Cruise. She's a blonde. She was in been in a couple of those movies. She's a fan favorite. She's rumored to be Sue Storm, and Joseph Quinn as Johnny Storm. Joseph Quinn, you may remember from Stranger Things. Oh my goodness, he was the standout of the last season. The metalhead, great character. With that, we're hearing Matt Smith may be rumored as Reed Richards, which could be interesting. But we are hearing that Jack Quaid is said that he was rumored as well, but he said, nope, I'm not even in the running. So take that away. And then I'm trying to think if anybody else is listed as well. Matt Smith could also play Norrin Rad, the Silver Surfer. So that's a lot to put in a movie, is adding Silver Surfer right away. So we'll see what happens with all these casting. But and then Matt Shakman is actually the one that's going to be directing it. And he was behind WandaVision. and he's also done Game of Thrones. So with that, what do you think? Fantastic Four.
With this information, I like the casting that there's rumor. Vanessa Kirby, based on just the look, I can see the look coming from it. I haven't seen enough stuff to her to kind of put a good opinion on that, but I do know just by looking at her, I think that she looks the role for it 100%. I can visualize that. When it comes to Johnny Storm, I think Joseph Quinn is good. Like, I feel like he can pull off that kind of arrogant hot shot. I could see that coming out of him. Who else would we say that we have going on there when it came to the other people? There was they were saying what's his name? What's the other guy's name from not Stranger Things, The Boys?
Oh, Jack Quaid.
Jack Quaid. Yeah. I heard that there was an earlier version of the story that said that. I can't really see that one. That one I can't really see. So yeah, I think if the rumors are true, that would be great. I'm more curious to see what they're going to do with Mr. Fantastic. I remember because John Krasinski was great. Everybody wanted him, and when we saw him as in Scarlet in the Doctor Strange movie, that was great, right? So curious to see how that would pan out. But I don't know. I feel like this one's going to be. I'm worried about this movie. That's for sure. Who knows? I don't know where it's going to be going.
Yeah, I'm curious how young they'll go with the cast. If they're going to go with more in their 30s, they're going to go younger 20s. There's an actor that I'm a big fan of, and I'm blanking on his name. He was in Top Gun. He essentially played the Iceman character in Top Gun Maverick. He was also in Scream Queens, and he is phenomenal. It's Glenn
Powell.
He and his role in Scream Queens was amazing because he essentially plays a himbo. He's full of energy, and I think he would be great as Johnny Storm. We had Chris Evans, who I think when he played Johnny Storm the last time, his best role was probably from Not Another Teen Movie, which he was great in. That's kind of had that same type of energy. Then we got Michael B. Jordan, who played Johnny Storm in that horrible film, but
never
played
saw
a little bit different. I didn't either, and he played a little bit differently. So I don't know if they're going to go more like who you think of Johnny Storm or do a different take. But yeah, it depends on the age of the characters. A lot of these folks, we start casting and they're in their late 30s. I don't know if they want to do that or they want to go younger. I'd prefer unknowns rather than knowns. I think that always a better approach because you don't tie things to them and they are free to be themselves.
But I also think these actors are like that works. But at the same time, I think like if you get somebody that's really, really big, that's where I feel like that's where it hurts it. But these actors, they are known, but they're not, their faces aren't plastered everywhere. So I feel like it's kind of okay. Because obviously we know Joseph Quinn is in Stranger Things, but other than Stranger Things, he's not really in anything else. And once he doesn't have the long metalhead wig on, he's kind of a different person.
Oh yeah,
or he's clean shaved, right? So, or a beard, because I've seen him without his stuff on, and looks completely different. So I feel like these kind of actors are okay, but I agree. Like for example, Matt Smith. As soon as you see Matt Smith, you see Doctor Who. No matter what, I watched Morbius. You see him in there. I'm like, no, that's Doctor Who. He's being weird. I don't know about that.
Exactly.
So
yeah.
I feel like you can use known people, just not too known. Like when they used Chris Evans at the time, it was perfect time to use them. You know what I mean? But yeah, so I think there's the time and place for on using people. But I agree, like definitely lesser known than more known for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. John Krasinski, I think, everybody wanted him and have been like, talk about somebody who's known to everybody. If he had been in, Reed, much earlier, probably not a bigger deal, but now he's just so well known that, and obviously they killed him off. So I'm glad we got that fan service and it was one and done and we can move on and do something different, hopefully. So we'll see how that goes. This movie is supposed to come out in 2025. And I know my dear X-Men are somewhere far after that, which just makes me sad. But hopefully get X-Men 97, the cartoon on Disney Plus this year. Hopes, maybe? Don't know. But definitely that'll be like the big first mutant thing that we get, hopefully. We'll see how that goes. So we move on to the what could have been. We do this every once in a while. We hear about projects that didn't work, didn't happen. I am, for one, am happy the age of the Snyder verse is dead. I'm ready to move on. My heart is open to take in new characters and versions of characters. But at one point, Ben Affleck was supposed to actually helm a Batman movie. And so, and it was going to be a lot more than a fight against Deathstroke. So if you remember the way Justice League ended, you got Deathstroke showing up, and poor Joe Manganiello, he shows up in the outfit, never to get that role ever again.
Well, remember, that was Zack Snyder's Justice League, not the original one.
Was that what it was? I can never remember who did it. Was that Joss Whedon's version or no?
No, Joss Whedon's version cut a gazillion things out. I will say that I will speak to just this. I am not a Snyder. I'm not like the Snyder fanboy. I enjoyed the Snyderverse, and I very much enjoyed the 4-hour Justice League. I don't know why, but it was just, I don't know. It all worked together. And there was a reason why it didn't work when Joss Whedon did it, because it was made a certain way. And if you're going to cut around and do all this kind of stuff, of course it's gonna come off. I'm not saying it was the best movie, but I really enjoyed it.
It was a lot, and it was better than.
It was
Joss's
definitely better.
version. Yeah, because Joss kind of came in, and it was a bad circumstance, and we've heard things about Joss, and he is a person who's a person. Got a lot of baggage and drama now, but when he came in, I think he felt like I made the Avengers, I can do anything, and
right?
That cockiness.
I think that's what we all thought. We all thought that, like, that sounds good. Let's do that, but. Yeah, he did not work out well at all, especially from the stories we've heard. Seeing Zach's original version, even if he was allowed to compress that even to like 2.5, maybe just under 3, I still think it would have still been received well. Obviously the universe is a complete mess, but I don't know. I don't think they deserve the rap they get. That's just me, though.
Yeah, it was a good experiment. It just struggled on so many ends. Like, I'm excited for Blue Beetle, but I might be the only person. I feel bad for the film.
I'm excited for Blue Beetle because it reminds me of, we're older than a lot of the people that are watching comic book movies now. It reminds me of all the times when we used to get superhero movies and they were either full cheese or like, this just has 2000 superhero vibes to it.
Yeah.
And I'm okay with it. You know what I mean? Like, in a good way. Unfortunately, it's going to bomb. It's going to absolutely bomb. Yeah. This should have been direct to streaming, not because of the people involved, just because it doesn't have enough behind it for it to get any sort of money. And, they're wasting money on their marketing and they're just going to call it a failure no matter what, which is fine because obviously the universe is being reset. But it's just sad because, like, if this went straight, I'm sure their numbers would have been a lot better. But I'm excited for it. I don't know anything about Blue Beetle. I love the actor. I don't know his name. I know it starts with an X, but I know he's from Cobra Kai, and he's great.
Solo.
Yeah, something like that. But he's fantastic. And it just looks fun. It looks great. I love the costume. Costume very much reminds me of Spawn. Remember the Spawn movie?
Oh yeah.
I get very much Spawn vibes, just the way it looks on him. I'm excited for it. I unfortunately will probably not see it in theaters. My theater viewing has been limited to whatever my daughter wants to see. That's the only time I can kind of justify going now. But I did bring her to Turtles, so.
Oh, perfect.
I wasn't missing Turtles. That's different. But for this kind of movie, I don't think my $10 is going to make the difference at the theater. I know that's a horrible way to think, but this is definitely wait for digital for me.
Yeah, I think people, when it comes to movies, they're going to the theaters for certain things. And superhero films, unless of a certain type, people just don't show up right now. And that's just, that's, you know what? And I totally get it. There's just, why should I invest if this is nothing? So I like the Blue Beetle. I'm a big fan of Young Justice, and he was so good in that. So I recommend watching Young Justice, the cartoon, to get a good feel for Blue Beetle. He's just a great reinvention of a character. It's really fun. And he's a young person there's not a young person in superhero films right now, which is kind of sad. So I like this, and it's a Latino focused film as well, which we don't get a lot either. So I will see it in the theater, but I know I might be by myself, so I totally get that. But going back to what Ben Affleck was supposed to do, essentially, back to the story we're going to talk about. It was supposed to be a plan as a continuation of the Snyderverse first set of DCU films. It was set to release somewhere in 2018. It would have pit Affleck's older, more grizzled Dark Knight against Deathstroke the Terminator, played by Joe Manganiello. But that's about all we knew about so far. But he said actually it was supposed to be a lot more than that. And Ben Affleck was really excited along with Jeff Johns. They can't say too much about the movie, but he said they thought Ben's story was going to cover something that had never really been covered in comics, but was building off of storylines in the Batman mythos over the last 80 years and approaching it from a new perspective. So with that, I would have been curious to see. I really wanted, and this is if I would have done it, we introduce these characters, but we don't kill Batman off or Superman off. We essentially allow each of these characters to have a place. They're not brought together because of Superman dying. Batman, we get to see Batman do Batman things and have some adventures. I would have liked that, but obviously that was not in the cards. But I kind of really wanted to see Ben Affleck had a chance to just be Batman and not have to worry about Superman, all these other things, and just deal with the rogues gallery. Because I've always liked Batman films because it seems like they, even though we've gotten different takes on them, they largely have avoided some of the more fantastical elements of Batman's rogues gallery. We don't get the Clayface. We don't get the kind of crazy, like he's taking on this character that makes no sense, but it's fun. So maybe that's where they were going to go. I don't really know, but him taking on Deathstroke would have been a cool idea. I'm a big fan of that character and his relationship with the Titans and how dangerous he is. Other than that, I really don't. They're very vague about this, but it was going to be interesting to see what Ben Affleck would have done with it because, by all means, he's a great director. Has been an Oscar. I believe he won an Oscar for one of his movies, and I would like to see a good director take on a character. Is always an interesting take on my part.
Yeah, I agree. What my thoughts on this, I kind of don't like when these kind of articles come up because at the end of the day, they don't really tell you much or they kind of make you miss about what would have happened. Like I read it through 3 times and they said, yeah, I would have explored 80 years of lore. What does that mean?
It's very vague.
Because everybody online was so excited, like, oh my God, did you hear that this was so awesome what they were going to do? I'm like, what were they going to do? They were going to explore 80 years of lore. Oh, okay. So like what?
Egghead, like Calendar Man, Mr. Zaz.
Who knows what that means? But they compared it to, I know, how there was one comic series where everything that happened before actually happened. So, Batman, stuff that Adam West did actually happened. Stuff that the Detective Comics did actually happened, right? So I guess maybe that's what they mean, where like maybe it would have kept in a continuation, but that's hard to do because you're already connected to the Spider-Verse, the Snyderverse. So you already are in that kind of specific universe. So I felt like maybe it was a blessing because anything that he could have done probably would have contradicted anything that the Snyderverse or those other movies already built. You know what I mean?
Yeah. It was a rough place. It was, like I said, the Snyderverse was an interesting approach to a different take on a universe of heroes because we haven't had it much. Marvel's really the only one to do it. So it doesn't mean that's the right way to do it. It just makes it harder to pull off when you're essentially introducing a bunch of characters in the midst of more characters. It's always recipe for success rarely is do a bunch of characters because it really means that you have less time for the characters. So it's like you're sharing, Wonder Woman shows up, but we don't get to do much with her, although she's cool and she shows up. Batman, we have to fill his background, and Superman kind of he never really got a sequel. He kind of got a shared sequel. Yeah. So it was a mixed bag. So we'll see how this is going to go. This is going nowhere. And at this point, we'll be done with this era after Aquaman, and I have no clue how Aquaman's going to work, but we'll see in a couple months.
Yeah, Aquaman, I have even less hope for that. Like that's a whole ball of mess. I don't even want to get into it.
Yeah, it's apparently they've refilled the ending a billion times because it's like, which Batman's going to be around? Because Batman's supposed to be in that movie. Like, which Batman is it? We don't know.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there you go. And then last story, this is going to be a short one, but I'm just excited about this. Scream 7 is officially moving forward, and the directors that have brought Scream back are leaving the project. They want to do different things. They just know with the strike and everything, that's going to delay them from going after new projects. So they're moving on. It was the people behind those were Matt Benelli-Alfin and Tyler Gillett. They're known as Radio Silence, which is kind of cool. But they want to essentially do a new project, which is rumored to be Dracula's daughter as part of the Universal Monster movie franchise, which is kind of cool to do something new. Why not? So Scream 7 will be bringing forward a new director, and that director did Freaky and also Happy Death State, and that is Christopher Landon. I know all of those movies have a lot of goodwill. They play with the horror genre in new and interesting ways and are really vibrant. And that's what you kind of want when you've got a franchise like Scream that's been around forever. It's had multiple takes on it. And if you want to keep it fresh, you bring a new voice. So that's what's going to happen. So I'm excited for this. I've enjoyed all of the Screams. I don't remember which happened in most of them. I think I watched one episode of the Scream TV series on MTV, but that's about it. But I've always been wholly a fan of the Scream series. So I'm hoping it's good. We'll see how it goes. And apparently the core 4 will be back.
Yeah, I enjoyed the last one. The one before it, so Scream 5 was so, but Scream 7 I enjoyed. Oh, sorry, 6. Yeah, I just hope it doesn't, I mean, they can jump the shark a million times. I just hope it's not like, I feel like they did this with Saw, where after each one, it's like, oh, this person was here all along. It's like, okay, and they just keep like kind of doing more stuff like that. You're like, give me a break. But yeah, I think they kind of have a good pattern going. So hopefully they continue the momentum and don't, butcher too much.
Yeah, apparently we know, no spoilers, well, spoilers for Scream 6, Gale Weathers survived, and Neve Campbell did not come back for 6, apparently because of money, so she could be brought back, which I assume could happen if they pay her what she deserves to come back.
I'm always curious about these money talks. Like I've always been curious about what people make, just in general in life. I'm like, hey, how much you make? Like that's not something you could talk to about people, but especially with Hollywood, I'm always so curious. I always wonder, like, what was the amount that wasn't enough? What was it that they decided we're gonna lowball the star of this franchise, or what is it that it wasn't enough for her? Like how low or how far apart? I'm so damn curious about that kind of stuff. I wish I knew.
Yeah, that is a good question because no one is going to ever be clear about their pay. I know back in the day it used to be
of course
like the $20 million man. Like these actors are going to pay. We don't know. Marvel doesn't even talk about how much they pay their actors. I know they're kind of cheap sometimes, but in this case, at this point, did they think she was worth paying the money this deep into the franchise? They've got these new actors and. Yeah, I mean, part of Scream, though, is bringing back characters that are from the franchise. So you eventually have to pay them something that makes it worth their while. But I mean, maybe they're hoping that, you didn't have a good couple of, years. We can pay you less because you're desperate. I don't know. That seems like really crappy and bad faith to someone who's been part of a franchise.
Exactly, yeah.
Well, that is the news. We covered lots of stories here, folks, but we are now ready to move over to our favorite establishment for libations and the things that we're enjoying in the world of nerd, and that's the Geek Easy.
Talk nerdy to me. Talk nerdy to me.
We're sitting in the Geek Easy, cover band's playing, drinks are poured, and we are ready to get our nerd on. So, John, what have you been geeking out about lately?
Well, I'll start with TV. I've been watching, most of my TV watching happens right before bedtime, but I've been watching What We Do in the Shadows, the TV show. And I remember loving the movie, that it was great. And I remember watching a little bit of season 1 and, I'm like, yeah, this is a great show. And then I kind of fell asleep on it. But, everyone talks about how amazing the show is. And I'm like, I decided to get back into it. And it's just been an absolute blast. Every single episode is fantastic. It completely deserves all the hype it's been getting. It's hilarious. They're adding a little bit of an ongoing story to it too. So like, it's not just, story of the week. They're doing little ongoing arc throughout each episode. So I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I think they're on season 4 right now. So I will probably
Season
be very
5.
Are they in 5?
And
Okay, so
I just started that. Yeah, they dropped this year, and I've been enjoying it. Yeah, so you've got a lot to look forward to. There's so many good episodes. Have you watched the episode with Jackie Daytona?
Yes, I have. That was fantastic. That was a great episode. Absolutely great. And Mark Hamill guest starring in that one. It was absolutely fantastic. When you got the toothpick and he's just like, I need to put my disguise on, puts the toothpick in, when he takes it off, oh my God, what are you doing here?
My blue jeans and my toothpick, hidden away. And he brings it out on occasion when he has to hide away. It's such a good episode. I show that to people. If they're like, if you want to see what the show is all about, just watch that. Yeah.
You could literally watch anyone, but that one is definitely great. So right now I'm in early on season 3, where they've just been slight spoilers for season 3, where they've just been nominated to the Vampire Council, and they're all getting up there. So that's such a great plot point to throw in there, because like they've done all they could where they are now, and to give them that kind of room to play, I'm excited to see what they do with it.
Yeah, season 4 is a really weird season is the best way to put it. I mean, they're all a little bit weird, but season 4 is weird. And season 5 is, I'm curious. I mean, I know what the hook is for season 5. I'm just curious to see what they do with it. But yeah, it's been such a good show. I love the movie, and it's really so well done. I'm a little bit behind on season 5, but I'm a little jealous of you. I mean, you got so much to look forward to.
Is 5 the final? Have they said?
I don't know. I think they're doing more seasons. And it seems like everybody's all in on it. And possible spoiler to the movie we're going to talk about, but Nadja is a voice in the movie.
She is, and I didn't realize it because I don't know a lot of the names, because I skip the intro most times, just because I've seen it a million times, so I don't need to keep seeing it. But when I was watching the other night, I saw her name. I was like, oh no, she's a Wingnut, I believe.
Yes, and there's a couple voices in that movie we'll talk about. I'm like, I have no clue who it was. I was guessing, but it's been renewed for season 6. So
I was just reading that.
Season 6. Yeah, so I'm very excited to see where they go. Knowing you get that many seasons, I don't think they're milking the franchise by any means. I think they're just finding things to have fun with.
I mean, like I said, like it initially it had a kind of a story every week, right? So they can do so much with it. I mean, if Always Sunny in Philadelphia can be on season 16, any show I think this show can always also do it as well. It just depends on what you do, because it's not a main story that you have to kind of drag along. It's just you're following people in their day-to-days. So with that, as long as you're not repeating the same jokes over and over again and doing something fresh, then you should be fine. Yeah,
and just a fun fact, a friend of our show, Doug Jones, who is an actor. He also portrays a lot of characters like Abe Sapien and things like that. He plays Baron Afanos in the show, and very excited to see him have a new role as he plays it. He's really good in the role, so you'll see him on the show in the future.
Fantastic. What are you, oh, sorry, I have one more thing. Yeah. So that's what I'm watching. What I'm reading right now is, and Tip, works out, I am reading the Turtles IDW run right now. So these are all the things I'm currently reading. I just messed up my whole order, but that's okay. For audio listeners, I am reading the comic series of Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles. This is the IDW
just the core
run.
Book, right? Just the core.
No, not the core book, because I'm also reading the in-betweens, the the camera's over here, TMNT universe. So the TMNT universe books are in betweens. They just build up on the characters a little bit more. Not a whole lot happens, but it's just moves the needle just a little bit on each character that's going on. I am reading whatever crossovers I can get my hands on. If I can get access to it, I'll read it. So what I do love about the series is that the offshoot stuff is not filler or a missed opportunity. Example, I read the crossover Turtles and Ghostbusters. Typical, another crossover. That stuff plays into the other books. Now, it's not necessary, but every single book they have builds on the characters. And it's not in a way that each person needs to, like, each writing team needs to know what's happening in the last one or whatnot. When you're reading this, if there's like a little hint of something, it'll put in a little box, see TMNT versus Ghostbusters, right? So it's easy to follow along, but it's more just like, oh yeah, I talked to this dude once that told me this thing, and I'll say it's from Ghostbusters. And it's not a major thing. Like, if you skipped it, you're fine. But if you're reading it, you're like, yeah, I understand how these guys are growing as not people, but as beings, learning through life. And it just continues to build to that. It deserves all the credit it gets. I can't put it down. It's a fantastic series. The last one I just finished was, where did I put it? Invasion of the Triceratons, which was volume 19. That was one of my favorites I've read in quite some time, because I don't want to spoil too much, but there is conflict within the family of Splinter and the Turtles in a way that you don't think. You know what? Here's a good way to think about it, because I know what you've been watching, even though you kind of took it off. The doc, think of the struggle between Splinter and the Turtles like the bloodline in the WWE. Where Splinter is here and he wants certain things, and the Turtles don't agree with what he's doing. I don't want to say what it is, because when you find out what it is, it's very surprising. When you get to that point, it's very interesting. But the dynamic that they have going on around this part of the book is just fantastic, and it's hooked me so bad, so much. But yes, it is a fantastic series. If anyone is feeling the hype from TMNT and they want to start reading, obviously start reading The Last Ronin, we talked about early on, because that's a one-shot, one and done, even though there's a sequel series out. But you start from the IDW series. They're like 150 issues in, and it is one hell of a ride. Highly recommend it.
I just looked up IDW's website for Turtles, and there are so many series. So I think that's helpful to know what to read, because I was looking, I'm like, there is so much, because there's eras of Turtles that they do comic books of. There are, they even do a new one. It's called like Saturday morning cartoons, which is kind of like the cartoon version, which is kind of crazy. They did a comic book of in a modern lens versus like the old Archie series. So the whole history of like who has published Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles throughout time. Mirage, I believe, was the original publisher. And then Archie, their relationship with Archie. They also had a relationship with Image. And I'm guessing IDW took it after Image. Maybe. Yeah.
So no, you're right. That sounds about right. So like basically the way they've wrote these is that you start off with TMNT. Like they're like, that's their main line. And then they release something called Reborn. It can be a little overwhelming to kind of keep up with everything, but if you have just a website that tells you what to read, or if you got the dough for it, you can buy the IDW collection, which is a massive, beautiful hardcover, which they have up to, I think, 9 or 10 right now. Oh, no, sorry. They're at like 14. And it takes every book, every issue, and puts it in the exact order you're supposed to read it in. That's every crossover, every side story, every single thing. It puts it all one by one. So you don't have to worry about, I got to go buy this, I go buy that. You buy this one hardcover, or should I say 14, and you're set. I wish I had the space for these. I don't, nor do I have the money for them. But if you can afford to read this book like this way, this is the ideal way, because you will not miss a single thing. But if you can't get through every single thing, you will be fine reading just the main line. You do not have to read everything. It just enhances it, right? It helps you understand the characters more, all that stuff, but it's not necessary by any means. There's no way I can even get them all. These are all from the library. There's no way
that's great.
I have the funds or the shelf space for any of this.
Yeah, and unless you're a collector and you plan to revisit and reread comics, you know, hey, there's nothing wrong. Utilize your library, find other ways, get a comic subscription to some of the online services. I think Comixology has some Unlimited has some of the Turtles comics as well. So,
it does, yeah. It has a good chunk of them in there,
which is great. I always feel like taking barriers away from people reading it is great. And then you'll get new customers that'll eventually go to Barnes & Noble or whatever, buy the individual trades or whatever that works, or go visit your comic book shop and visit monthly and get a comic book there. So I think it's always a great surprise to give a kid a comic book. You know, it's always a cool thing to do.
Absolutely.
So very good. Very good. I mean, that's exciting.
What have you been watching and reading?
For me, I just want to give once again a sad farewell to Mr. Paul Ruebens, Pee Wee Herman. He passed away. I did want to touch on a little bit. He passed away July 30th, 2023. If you're anyone from the 80s and probably early 90s, well, probably really early 90s, Pee Wee Herman was a big thing. He was everywhere. He had action figures, merchandise. He had 2 movies by Tim Burton and had a ongoing children's TV show on CBS on Saturday mornings where it was the wildest thing you ever saw. He also was an actor in many different things. He was a vampire in Buffy the Vampire Slayer, the movie. He also showed up in What We Do in the Shadows as essentially a very similar vampire at the Council of Vampires with Blade. And if you remember that, when the vampires...
I don't remember that episode. I'm going to have to go back and watch that one.
They're being accused of killing the Baron.
I do remember that, but I don't remember Pee Wee Herman being in it. Oh, you don't
remember
or should I say Ruben? Yeah.
Yeah. He's in that. He has long hair, but he is one of the cameos in there, along with like Danny Trejo. So he's in there. And yeah, he played in straight roles in regards to like he was just playing a unique character actor. But yeah, Pee Wee Herman was his biggest role, but he was also played the father of the Penguin in Batman Returns. Just a really unique guy. Yeah,
I did not. Wow, I did not know he was in Batman Returns either. Oh my goodness.
Oh yeah, it was great. But he's done a lot of cameos, guest appearances. They actually did a Pee Wee movie for Netflix, so that was late in the game. There's actually a live action version of Pee Wee's Playhouse where they actually created the character at SCTV with Phil Hartman, and they performed it live, and it was recorded, and it was on an HBO special. It's still on HBO Max if you want to watch that. So it's kind of crazy, and such a versatile person, kind person. No one ever said anything bad about Pee Wee Herman. He was the voice of pilot droid Rex in Star Wars Galaxy Edge, so he'll be there forever, known for that. Yeah. So I just want to say thanks, Paul, for all the great things you did. I was always a big fan of that. His the joy he brought Pee Wee to life as a character. I mean, he embraced it, and he didn't say, "Oh, I can't do that anymore." No, it was something he loved. So thank you, Paul Ruebens. You'll be missed. And please check out Pee Wee's Playhouse. It's crazy. I mean, Lawrence Fishburne is a character on that show as a Cowboy Curtis. It's crazy that he got these big names to be part of that show. So it's definitely worth a watch. But what I've been watching for fun, which is better than expected, Twisted Metal. This is an adaptation of the Sony PlayStation game that largely has been out of mind of everybody because there hasn't really been a game since the PlayStation 3 with, I believe, maybe PlayStation 2, Twisted Metal Black. So it's
PlayStation 1, I think it started actually.
It did. I don't think there's been a game though since PlayStation 2 though. That's the crazy part.
3. They did have one on 3.
Oh, they did. Okay.
I think it was like a reboot. I don't think it did too well. I remember picking it up for really cheap, and I go, wow, this game is not as easy as I remember it being. No, it was so much harder than I remember.
I was horrible at it, but it's such a cool idea that, it should just come back in a modern lens, in a way to play with, like, considering how many multiplayer games we've got these days. I'm thinking of, like, I'm blanking on the name of the car soccer game.
Rocket League.
Yeah, Rocket League. I mean, car combat would be so much fun. It gets you away from the standard FPS, kill guys, things like that. I think it would be great. I'm surprised there hasn't been a car combat game brought into Fortnite, to be honest. But it's ripe for the picking. This could be a live service game, easy to do. But Twisted Metal is just essentially car combat with really wacky and weird characters. And no one had faith that this show, with Anthony Mackie as the lead, Nev Campbell is in this. You've got, I'm blanking on the woman from Brooklyn Nine-Nine who...
she was also in Encanto.
Yes.
Stephanie Beatrice.
That's right.
Yeah.
She kind of plays like a companion. You've got Will blanking on his name. Arnett doing the voice of Sweet Tooth, and you've got Samoa Joe, the wrestler, doing the body of Sweet Tooth.
Which is like, you know what? I wish they just gave it to Samoa Joe. I don't know what his acting jobs are, but like,
right. That's how I felt like it. Felt weird. Yeah,
because like Will Arnett, his voice, and that's not Will Arnett there. So it's just it's weird. Like they should have just given it to. They should just give it to Joe. Like, but maybe his chops suck. But then at the same time, then find someone that could do it both, because you have that disconnect when you don't have both of them being done by the same person.
If I looked back at a character who would have been great for it, Chris Farley could have done Sweet Tooth. I mean, he's got the physicality.
That would be great.
It would have been crazy. But I mean, this is all about a show. It's in the post-apocalypse. We don't know what happened, but people, when they're traversing the countryside from essentially secured cities, it's a wild land. It's like Mad Max. You've got to have people, couriers, that get things from here to there, and that's who our main character is. His name is John Doe, and because he calls himself the milkman. So basically he delivers. He's got a Subaru WRX, and he calls his car's got a name, and he's never lived in the city. He can't remember where he was before everything occurred. And essentially he gets a deal that he could live in one of these cities if he does a specific delivery. And that's kind of the premise of the show. It's better than it should be. The writing is good.
I've seen the reviews. Yeah, I'm surprised.
That Sweet Tooth scene that they showed in the trailer is very bad. And it's not a good part. It's like, I didn't even like the Sweet Tooth part. I like the other parts around it. I thought, everybody's all in on this, and the writing is pretty good. And that's the part that I would have not guessed. It's full on R, mature, bloody and gross, but funny as well. So they do a good job of really managing it. I think the car combat is pretty good considering the budget, I guess, they had to work with. And the cast is pretty impressive. I've only watched the first 2 episodes, but I mean, it's really impressive. And you've got a lot of different storylines on what's going to happen. So I would say, if you're looking for something, half-hour episodes long too, that's the other part. It's comedies, and that's how it works. It's essentially a comedy, action comedy is the best way to put it. And it's fun. I think it nails it. And I think it's the best we could have expected for a Twisted Metal property. And I'm enjoying it. I really am. I don't know if we're going to get more seasons, but I think Sony, from a perspective of putting their properties out in adaptations, has done a pretty good job. So, I mean, with The Last of Us and this, Uncharted.
The Last of Us. Uncharted was fine. It wasn't a great movie, but I mean, I've seen movies that were worse.
Exactly. It felt like a very color by numbers, like action Indiana Jones light type film, or Lara Croft
pretty
type
much
of thing. Yeah, and it did what it needed to do. I guess it was successful, but definitely didn't raise the bar, which is disappointing, I think, when people think about what they love about Uncharted. But maybe future movies could add those layers and be better, get a different director maybe that can handle this and get a better script maybe. We'll see. I don't know if, because the writer's director, if we're going to see a sequel anytime soon, but it wasn't bad. So I hope though with TV projects, I know there's a couple other. I think we are getting a Horizon series. I know we're getting a God of War series. So those will be harder, I think, to adapt just because of the fantastical nature and their budget required to bring those worlds to life. So that could be really scary if they don't nail it.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, check out Twisted Metal. It's on Peacock. It's like $1 a month if you can find a deal. It's not expensive.
I'm Canadian and we don't get it here.
Oh, you don't get it. I wonder where it would show up. I always ask Mark, like, where do you get that? He goes like, Crave, I think, is a service that covers stuff. And there's all these other services that I don't have any clue. But that's a shame that you guys don't have really a good pipeline for, and I don't even know if it's available internationally either, because that's how I watch WWE.
It looks like Paramount will have it, Paramount Plus. So I will check Paramount to see if it's on there.
That's an interesting relationship.
Yeah, thankfully, my mother-in-law loves streaming services, so I get to mooch a bunch of them.
Well, and it's kind of interesting because it's a Sony property, and they produce and do all those things. So I think they sell it around. So in different markets, I bet they can go to whoever and put it out there. So that's a good deal for them. And Sony's been pretty smart. They don't have a streaming service, so they can sell to the higher bidder, which is nice.
And thank God they don't. Thank God they don't.
Yeah, that would have been a bad situation because they'd be in the same boat of everybody else, is putting out content, limited content, and raising prices every year. So we don't need more of that.
Twisted Metal's right here.
Yeah.
Oh, wait,
that's great.
It's not here yet, but it's going to start on August 10th. So I guess I can wait.
Well, good. Yeah, enjoy it. It'll be, I'm not sure if they'll dump it all at once, but I think it's worth a watch. I think I would say it gets better as it goes along. That's the thing. It builds momentum. Yeah. And just lastly on Peacock, John, you and I were talking about wrestling. SummerSlam was on yesterday, which was a lot of fun. I don't talk a lot about wrestling on the show. Charlie's not a big fan of it. I do enjoy wrestling for what it is. I say it's a soap opera with punching and kicking.
Pretty much, yeah.
You can watch a billion weeks and not much changes. The storylines are fun and over the top. It's weird. It's like before we had superhero films, we had wrestling, and they were larger than life, bringing storylines together and being highly entertaining. It's live performances, which is amazing that these people can raise the bar off the cuff, riffing, and that takes effort. And it's not like just acting, because it's more than that. It's improvising plus acting plus being physical. So it's like being a wrestler. I don't think they get enough kudos for what they have to do to be successful. Where an actor, they're highly edited, directed, 18 takes to do something. They have stuntmen and everything like that, except for Tom Cruise. But I mean, it's amazing. And SummerSlam, where I don't know all the storylines, they do a good job of, like, before every match, they tell you whatever happened over the last 3 months. It's like
so you're good.
2-minute package. So you're good to go.
Yeah, you are definitely good.
Yeah. I did not get to watch it all, but I watched the first match, which was really amazing. And then I watched the second match, which drove me nuts because it's Logan Paul. I do not like him at all. And the guy he took on, I didn't know his name either.
Ricochet.
But it was a hell of a match. I was like, it kept on going. And Logan Paul, as much as I dislike him, he did great. I mean,
is this your first time watching a Logan Paul match?
I might have seen him before, but I'm just, and it's he and his brother. His brother does MMA, which is kind of crazy. He's successful as he is. But I mean, and he's a perfect heel. I mean, that's exactly what you want. You want somebody that nobody likes, that plays the role, and he sells it, which I just wasn't expecting. Like, I just thought he was going to be a gimmick, like WWE does at times. Like, they'll bring on a star who's in a movie, they'll bring him in, and it's like, you're not very good. I think you've seen Logan Paul probably more than I have, because I'm a lapsed wrestling fan at best. I only watch when the big events happen. And Logan Paul, I know he's been touted to be, I don't know how involved he is, except for showing maybe up at big events. But, and he always has like feuds, then he shows up for these events. And
yeah, he shows up for the big events, but the feuds start, maybe a month or two before the event is kind of build it up, right? So he comes in, he usually cuts some promos, straight up heel stuff, but he was at the last pay-per-view, Money in the Bank. He was at WrestleMania, and he was at SummerSlam last year. and that's when I got back into it. I got back into it last year around SummerSlam, and yeah, people don't like him because of how he got to where he is, but man can perform. There's no doubt about that. You can't argue against it. And I've only seen the WWE related interviews, but like he on his podcast, he's had many WWE guys on, and I watched those, and I I know some of the reasons why people hate him. Obviously, he's obnoxious, but like when I watched those interviews, I feel like because of their vibe, they're able to get kind of interesting interviews, more laid back. You don't really get to see the behind the scene versions of wrestlers. So I've always really loved seeing wrestlers behind the scenes. And he kind of gets that out of them. So like, at least when it comes to him, when it comes to wrestling, I'm not gonna say I'm a fan, but I like his work. I like what he does. I like how he talks to wrestlers outside of it. I don't know. I think he's a good fit. I know it. The only thing that obviously, scratches people wrong is that like he gets too much opportunity when people that work way harder get none. And unfortunately, he's bringing eyes to the product. So that's the double-edged sword.
Yeah, it makes sense. I mean, and that's what they want. They want eyes on the product. Makes sense. He's a good heel. I think he does what he's asked and he puts in the work because he did things I was like, wow, I'm actually amazed he did that. It looks genuine and the athleticism is there to do the things he does.
It is there, yeah.
I mean, and he's taken a beating just like everybody else and he's not giving anything less. Like I said, that fight went on for much longer than I thought I would, which was like, that's impressive. And it kept unsurprising with the level of moves they did. And I'll be honest, I am a fan of wrestling from the 80s, and this product is far superior. People are athletic. Everybody, I feel like can do anything. I mean, and the wrestling we got on a regular basis was so limited. I mean, it was like on syndication, on the weekends, maybe you got like the C tier like scrubs all the time. It seems like the matches you're getting now in wrestling, you're not getting bad matches at all. You're getting like names It's not like the Brooklyn Brawler. You're not getting the scrubs. You're not only getting to see the big matches at the big events. So I'll give them kudos that they put on product. Obviously, it's tearing their wrestlers limb for limb, putting a lot of stress on them. But man, and they have so many events now that it's highly impressive. And if you've got the Peacock app, I mean, you're getting all this for like, you don't have to pay the $100 for a pay-per-view anymore. So it's quite a deal. So I'm impressed. I'll be interested to see what they do next when their deal ends. So yeah, if you have Peacock and want to get wrestling, there's a lot there and you don't have to pay for pay-per-views, things like that. It's all in. So it's a hell of a deal. So SummerSlam, check it out. So that is it for the Geek Easy. It's now time for us to depart and fly to parts unknown. We're going to go to the Thunderdome where the mutants are gathered for a topic or game to be entertained. And this week we're doing TMNT Mutant Mayhem.
Welcome to another edition of Thunderdome!
Thank you, Tina. The mutants have been gathered for a topic or game to be entertained. And this week we're doing Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutant Mayhem. This is a new movie, and quite honestly, we have not had a Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles movie in quite some time since the Michael Bay films of 2014, 2017, I believe. This is a strictly animated piece. There hasn't been an animated movie since I believe 2007. There was a CGI film with that, and then before that, we've got obviously the live action Turtles. Before then.
Technically, there was another animated movie. It just wasn't a theatrical, but Rise of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles had a movie, and that is an incredible movie. A lot of people dismiss it because of the way the series was, but if you just go into that movie blind, it's fantastic. That one came out last year, and it is my top 3.
That's really?
One of my top 3.
Yeah, I was not a fan of that animated style, and so I kind of dismissed it after the previous series, which I loved. My son was a big fan of. I just skipped it. I'm like, it's not for me, so I'm not going to.
Oh, and that's
about
good.
It.
It's good to acknowledge it. I would definitely give it a shot.
Okay.
If you can get past the the mystic powers that they have in it. It's great. The basic premise is that it's the end. Like right now, they're in the future, and Krang has officially took over the world, and they send Casey Jones back in time toward the Turtles to stop this blah 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 from happening, and shit goes wrong. Oh, sorry, I don't know if I'm allowed to swear, but
That's okay.
If you appreciate animation, the animation is absolutely amazing. And the story is fantastic too. So yeah, it's on Netflix. I would give it a shot. I'm just saying.
Okay.
My number
Well,
3.
you know, I like recommendations, 'cause especially it's like, oh, watch 18 seasons and then, you know, you'll get to it.
No.
Like if it's just I can watch something smaller, I appreciate that. So I'll
90
check it
minutes.
out.
You're in and out, my friend.
Perfect. I love that. They appreciate my time, respect my time. I'm all in. So this movie, give you the details really quickly. Directed by Jeff Rowe, who was behind Mitchell's vs. the Machines. Great film. Screenplay, Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg, a few others. Story also, Seth Rogen, Evan Goldberg. At this point, the actor list is pretty long. Micah Abbey, Shimon Brown Jr., Hannibal Buress, Rose Byrne, Nicholas Cantu, John Cena, Jackie Chan, Ice Cube, Natasha Demetriou, Ayu Edebiri, Giancarlo Esposito, Post Malone, Brady Noon, Seth Rogen, Paul Rudd, Maya Rudolph. And this film is about 100 minutes, which is perfect for animated. Released now, it's out in theaters, and had a budget of $70 million. At this point, I believe it's made $42 million since release, which isn't bad based on the budget they have. So hopefully it's a success in regards to that. So we'll get more of these because I think it was really cool. And I think there was a lot of care in this movie. So we'll see how that goes.
Fun fact, it's already greenlit a series, a 2-season series to bridge the gap between part 1 and part 2.
Oh, fantastic. I'll be curious if they do a different art style or they ape that, because that art style did not look cheap. So
maybe something for the show, maybe more like just simple 2D for sure.
I think that's fair. I think you can find a way to simplify it so it's not like horrible and it fits what they're going for and then makes you appreciate. It's kind of like, how would you do Spider-Verse, a series like that?
Oh my God.
It's just probably not possible.
No, probably not.
It's probably not possible. Yeah. The premise of this film, after years of being sheltered from the human world, the Turtles set out to be accepted as normal teenagers through acts of heroism. The brothers go on a hunt for a mysterious crime syndicate, but trouble arises when an army of mutants is unleashed upon them. Very simple premise. They didn't go deep. They gave us just enough to get us started in this movie, and they said, just enjoy the ride. Not a lot of mythology you had to remember. It's essentially an origin film, but the origin felt fresh, and they moved right in to tell a cool story. And I think the freshest part about this, we felt like we actually got real teenagers for the first time as Turtles versus adults, telling us that they're teenagers. So with that, this film, I remember when it was announced and we saw Seth Rogen and Evan Goldberg behind it. At first I was a little worried, but then after I saw what they did with the boys, I was like, okay, they're going to bring something different to the Turtles we hadn't seen before. And when we saw this first trailer for this film, I'm like, they nailed it. The art style is unique. The tone, they're going with the soundtrack and also the voice of the characters and their the way they're portrayed. I'm all in. And there's no hint of, you know, the usual suspects, Splinter, Krang, those type of things either. So
You mean
but we
Shredder.
did get Rocksteady and Bebop. Exactly. Yeah. So at this point, I was really excited about this film, and we went with the whole family. My wife actually said, I want to go see it, which was an oddity. And my son came along too. He's not, you know, we don't see a lot of movies together, but this was something he thought looked cool. He was a big fan of Spider-Verse and recognized the art style was something that drew him in. And he used to be a big fan of Turtles as well. So that's how I saw the film. I just saw it today. And you said John, you saw it with your daughter.
Yeah, I saw it with my daughter and my wife. Well, it was just supposed to be initially just me and my daughter, but she's like, no, I want mom to come too. So we all went, and we had an absolute blast watching it. She loved it as well. It was fantastic. It delivered on all cylinders. There was a lot of changes to the mythology, the lore, yada, yada, yada. And it's not that I didn't like it. It's just I've seen it the same way for so long. It's just threw me off. But I'm welcome to it. A lot of people, it's even still now, people dismiss the kid actors, the April casting, et cetera, et cetera. And like, it's really, yeah, it's different, but it's not going to change it. You know, my view of April has always been the report, like that reporter that you've seen from the original 80s cartoon, because that was my first exposure to it. And the 1990 movie, like that to me is what April is. But it doesn't matter. Like, what's the difference between, it just goes to show you that our society, right? Because like at the end of the day, it's just a different actor playing her. You're just trying to, people are just focusing on her weight and her skin color. It's just like, at the end of the day, it's just a different actress. Like, who cares about those other things? If it was a white actress and she was plus size, maybe they would have said something about the plus size, but they wouldn't say anything about the color. You know, it's like, it's who cares? But at the end of the day, I thought the girl that did April, she's from The Bear. She was fantastic. I don't know her name off the top of my head though.
A show I have to watch still. It's on my list.
Great show. And I love the kid actors. One actually thing I wanted to point out is that a lot of people said, you know, they sound like teenagers. But I don't know if you've realized this, but as the years go on, teenagers, like kids, seem younger. So back then, you know, when the 1990 series came out, an 18-year-old looks like me now. You know what I mean?
That's true.
Then look like me at 36. So now an 18-year-old now looks like, we went to a theme park over this past weekend, and it looks like everyone working there was 10 or 11.
12.
Everyone looked, exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, it was good that they really tapped into that. There were some moments where I'm like, I am not hip with what's going on right now, like, you know, using certain languages, but I know the certain slang. But you can hear the way the kids are talking. I'm like, oh yeah, this sounds like I'm around my nephews or something. But
exactly.
they grew on me. Like, Donnie's voice was the one that stood out the most as like, wow, he is really, like, he hasn't even hit puberty yet, has he? But the actor that was playing him just pulled it off so well. And one thing I read was that they actually did all of their scenes in the room together, like all four of us right here in front of the microphone. So you got, and they actually bonded. So you got that natural vibe to it. And you can see it in some of the scenes where they're riffing around, like when they're trying to do their New York accent and all that kind of stuff. Like, you can see it in those scenes that they're really connecting with each other and just really riding each other. So I think the people that they got and the direction that they decided to go with it was great. The ending, I'm so on. And are we tapping spoilers at all? Can we go a little spoiler?
Oh yeah, we should probably say this. We're gonna have spoilers, folks.
Okay.
You know, come back and see the movie, and then listen to the rest of this, because I think it's important. Because at this point, we want people to see this movie, so see it, then come back. Because I think, regardless, I think that the big part, my wife has not seen Turtles in a long time. My son, I think you can be a big fan of any Turtles, or even not a fan of Turtles at all, and come in, like, be a fan of this movie, which is great.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I feel like, so basically at the end when they, spoilers, basically at the end where they are now welcomed in society and now they can go to school with everyone. That was weird to me because I can't remember any medium where they've ever done that, where they've ever been accepted. And it was so weird. And it's a good message, right? Because it's just like, you know, be yourself, you get accepted, that kind of stuff. And, you know, that comes from Seth Rogen doing always his coming of age teen movies and things like that. So I get why they did it. It was just weird for me to see that because I've never seen it like that. I still can't wrap my head. That's a good
point.
Yeah, I still can't wrap my head around the concept because I'm like, okay, well, where are they going to go with part 2? Because does that mean they don't need to stay in the shadows anymore? You know, even in the second Michael Bay movie, you know, no one really, like the Technodrome was happening and, you know, they were fighting, but people weren't seeing them fight. They were hidden from the public. And when they got their ceremony at the end, it was off the island and all that kind of stuff, like on the island with the Statue of Liberty. So even in that movie, they kind of hit it. So it was weird to me. I'm very curious to see how they do it. I have no doubt that they'll do something fun with it, but that was the only part that kind of stood off like, it's a little off to me. Baxter Stockman, I thought we were going to get way more time with him, Giancarlo
No, hardly
Esposito,
any.
right? Like he was one and done. I actually thought that Superfly was going to be Baxter Stockman. Like I thought that when they fell on top of each other, it was like they merged together, but no,
They merged, yeah.
But they're two separate entities. But it's weird because Superfly does have his little afro at the back, just like Baxter did. So I maybe we find out later that is, but Ice-T as Superfly was fantastic. He absolutely owned that. Jackie Chan as Splinter.
Oh, you mean Ice Cube?
What did I say? Ice-T? Too many rappers with ice in their name. Sorry, Ice Cube. Yeah, Ice Cube was absolutely fantastic.
He even put some lyrics out there too as he was talking, which I thought was incredible. Exactly. I do want to layer in where you talked about how this ends, because it kind of reminded me in a lot of ways of how Iron Man ended, where Tony Stark came out as Iron Man, and then also where Peter Parker came out as Spider-Man he was revealed as, and that's where I felt like this one took a different step. It's like, oh, we're going someplace we've never done before.
Yeah.
And I think that's great, because if you want that version of Turtles that has never done before, there's a billion other places you can get it. Do something new. And that's kind of what they did, which is like, that's pretty bold of them. Because I don't know what that really takes away from the formula.
Yeah, and I feel that opens the door for them to, I feel like it's going to kind of be similar to a Spider-Man now, where they have to balance work and that. But the difference is that people know that they're fighting crime. So I am very interested just to see how they do that. Jackie Chan as Splinter was just fantastic. The nods to Jackie Chan's fighting style, like first off, seeing Splinter, I'm like, oh yeah, he's funny. They're making him a joke like they did in The Rise of the Ninja Turtles, which I hated that Splinter. I hated that Splinter so much because he was so much a racial stereotype, even though it's an Asian man doing it, but like it was such a racial stereotype. Here it was so Jackie Chan, and when he finally got to fight, I'm like, oh, thank God he can actually fight, because if he couldn't, I'd be so upset. And everything that he was fighting, they made him fight like Jackie Chan. It was fantastic. So that was great. All the mutants were fantastic, especially Ray Fillet. I love him.
That was so weird. I was wondering who it was. I'm like, oh, it's Post Malone.
Yeah, I know. It was so weird, like, because Post Malone's known for like more auto-tune, I thought. But I liked them. I liked everybody. Every mutant was fantastic. Bebop and Rocksteady being on the good side is weird. I'm hoping that Shredder. It's weird,
yeah.
Yeah, hoping Shredder lures them over to the dark side. I'm excited to see Shredder, because like, we're not going to, usually the battle between Turtles, Splinter, and Shredder is because there's a connection, right? If Shredder is like this mercenary, it's different, but maybe there's something more. Maybe it's more of a backstory that Splinter hasn't told everybody. So all in all, I'm just excited from top to bottom of like, this was a great foundation. Now please keep going, because I need to see how this builds up, because I'm tired of not having consistent Turtles in my life. I need it.
Yeah, it's kind of crazy. So, I mean, this movie, it does take a lot of different approaches. Like I said, it's essentially, this is the Turtles' first missions. This is like Turtles Begins is the best way to put it.
Yeah, basically, yeah.
Because they don't have a history of doing crime fighting, and they finally, we can maybe become heroes, and that's how we get introduced and embraced, which I thought was kind of cool. I mean, April's a high schooler, and that's from that lens, and their view of the world is a little bit different, and I like that approach. I'm like, we've never seen it before, so this did some things where I feel like it really grounded everyone together, which was great. And I was worried because I'm like, oh, they're going to introduce all these villains, which that was a lot of character drops. I mean, all of these characters that are honoring all the different eras too, like characters I really didn't get to see, but were introduced later, things like that. Really cool. And it managed them just like Guardians of the Galaxy managed multiple characters in a way that I don't have to tell you everything about these characters, but we'll tell you just enough that you get just enough, yeah. And that's enough. We get their personality, we get the way they interact, and we had some connections, like with Mondo Gecko. It was more of a connection there, and we saw their personalities. But to your point, normally these would be the rogues gallery who are bought on like in next movie. You're going to get these guys. Next, I'm like, well, who's left? Well, I mean, I think I know who's left because that's layering on more and more of the mythology that's been brought out, how many more years? I mean, the Rocksteady and the Bebop are from the heritage beginning, but I like the fact that they brought in these characters a lot of people won't know, but we know, and John, that they can pull in from so many other resources like comic book movies do that not everybody has to be aware of, but when they bring them in, it'll be cool for the people that are the dedicated fans, and all those people that don't know, like, oh, this is a cool thing. So I like that we're getting a little bit of everything in a way that still allowed these characters to have presence. They all had their personalities. The jokes were pretty funny from what I got. I laughed quite a bit at a few things, like the big boss battle when they shot Super Duper Fly, and they shot him with the one thing, and one horse falls off. I'm like, how many times are we going to have to shoot him? Because there's a lot of horses.
Well, yeah, and then he goes, oh, it's just a horse. I don't need that horse.
Yeah, exactly. Oh, I mean, some of the jokes were pretty funny. The humor of it, teenagers, was all through this. I mean, the hormonal stuff, the goofy, like, you can't say this, and like they were gonna well, you can't do that. That's not how you want to be introduced by the world. And they're like, okay, well, how do you want us to do it? And they're geeky and goofy, and I thought their personalities were very fun versus being like adults rage monsters. Like, typically Raph is like that guy. It's like, I'm a loner and I'm like this, but he was just a very hormonal teenager at a point.
Yeah, no, it's I loved all the little jokes. I loved even the one from the trailer. They're like, hey man, you ratted us out. Hey, don't use that word that way.
Yes. And I liked this is a different side of Splinter too, where we obviously get the protective side, but he was like trying really hard to be a good dad, like in different ways. Like he wanted to make them feel the human world. So I like the fact that they layered on that, because normally it's just like he's the firm master who has a heart of gold, but isn't like the dad. And this one I felt like he was really being a dad to these kids, which 100%. Was very fun. Yeah. What do you think? I mean, the animation style. I know my wife struggled with it because she has some visual difficulties. So she said it felt dark to her. And I would agree. It didn't pop like a Spider-Verse or Mario.
Yes.
The color palette was a little bit muted, I think more so than a lot of people are used to. And the animation style was a weird claymation. I don't know what the best way to put it. It was CGI, but the style they used definitely felt like you could see almost someone making a claymation figure and putting impressions on it when they're making a little character.
Mm-hmm. I agree. So I thought maybe it was just my theater that was a problem. So it doesn't sound like it was. It did feel dark in a lot of times, and a lot that's why I almost felt like disconnected from the movie in a way. That's why I'm looking forward to watching it at home. I felt very disconnected at points where I got to the point where when I left, I'm like, did I like this movie? I was just felt the darkness of it kind of threw me off. So I think that just might be some, because I've heard of issues about movies coming to theaters, whether it was sound or anything. So I'm hoping it's just a problem, but it definitely did hurt the viewing experience a little bit for me, and I am very much looking forward to, watching this at home where I can adjust the brightness accordingly.
I mean, and I know that was a problem with Spider-Verse. The audio mix was off. Like people complained about that. Like you couldn't hear the voices very well, and some of the things were a little off. So yeah, I mean, I feel like a movie in the theater, you want it to be the best. And I feel like sometimes you don't get that because either the projector isn't tuned enough, it's not bright enough, you don't get the right sound, somebody's loud and annoying, and that's what always sucks. It's like, this should be the best way, and anything that ruins it always puts you in a bad mood and gets you away from it. So I think it will be, I mean, this will probably be on, I think it's going to be on Peacock. No. This will be on Paramount Plus.
This will be on Paramount, yeah. I wouldn't say, I don't see it being right away, but this is just like with every Turtle movie, I buy that stuff physically every single time. I have the original series, I have the 2012 series, the Michael Bay movies, I even have the live action series that was short-lived. So I will buy it and I will watch it a million times.
Yeah, so I think a 4K viewing on a player would be fantastic. You play with your brightness, and I think it'll be a great showing.
Mhm.
And then lastly, I want to touch on the music. The
Fantastic.
music was definitely hip hop. I mean, that was definitely the feel. And even
Mhm.
when they brought in Wu-Tang, which I'm like, that's a very
Yeah.
brave choice in a kids movie. And they nailed a lot of the things. I thought did a great job of marrying the music and the blend for it. I thought it was really good. What's your take on the music?
Music was fantastic. The soundtrack was really great, like just the actual score itself. And the music itself was like the licensed music. It's funny coming from like Super Mario, where the licensed music was kind of not ruined it, but just like you didn't need to use licensed music. This is licensed
Generic.
music. Yeah, this was licensed music done right because you can tell they used particular ones. And it wasn't just like easy ones too, but like all the music that was in there was great. Like I think it's Tribe Called Quest. The main song you hear in the trailer, Can I Kick
You
It?
kick
Like
it?
that's a 90s
Yeah.
song, you know what I mean? Like they're not looking and it's a popular song, but it's not like a big song either. So I definitely think that the music was fantastic. I think the people behind it were great in knowing what to put on there.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing we've lacked though with Turtles, and maybe we'll get it eventually. I mean, we've got
Mhm.
several different Turtles songs through history. You know, the song from the original cartoon. We've
Mhm.
got Turtle Power from the first movie. We've got Ninja Rap, which we did get a call back to that. Um, but a theme that, like, if you think about it, like Star Wars, you've always got that common theme through
Yes.
everything. Um, I don't feel like we've got that with Turtles. I mean, you could do like, I guess, would it be the first
You
Turtles
would
cartoon? Is that the one
Yeah,
you go with? I don't know.
that to me is the original one. Like that, you can even like hear hints of it in every. I don't know if they did anything like in the credits that I can remember, but yeah, the original one. I'm like, dun, 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 dun,
Hmm.
dun. Like to me
Yeah.
that is the theme. They just don't put it on everything. Um, they don't shove it in there. They did put a little Go Ninja Go Ninja Go from Secret of the Ooze.
Yes.
So that was
Hmm.
nice. Oh, and I also just read that we were just talking about it coming out digitally. It's coming out digitally on September 5th. They just announced that it's coming out in not even a month. Come on,
That's
guys.
rough.
I mean, like they
Yeah.
already greenlit the sequel, so it's fine. But like, you got to give us. I mean, they put it out at a wrong time. Like to put it out right in the middle of Barbie, right in the middle of Oppenheimer. All
Yeah.
like the timing wasn't great. I will say that. But hey, wow, that
No,
is
this
very
should have been
surprising.
like this could have been follow Mario movie, maybe do this one like in May, and do something like that, or pick another window. Yeah, I hate to see movies get a limited viewing on their theatricals because people find out, oh, it's going to be elsewhere. It's going to be on Paramount
Yeah,
Plus in 45 days. So I'm like, I'll just wait. It's like they're sabotaging themselves when they could be
exactly.
making more money. Like Elemental, I think is the key movie right now that didn't start great, but
Hmm.
because it found an audience, it had more time in theater, is actually making more money and is getting a lot of goodwill. And
Yeah,
when you
because
take
there's
that
nothing
out from
else
a movie,
playing.
yeah,
Yeah, there's nothing else playing. So someone's like, "Oh, I'll go see it." Like I was looking, I was like, maybe we'll go watch it tomorrow. But at this point, I'm like, well, the second I go watch it, they're gonna say, "Yeah, it's coming to Disney Plus this week." I'm like, all right, I just spent $30 for
exactly.
nothing.
Yeah,
Disney
it's
doesn't need
kind
my
of sad
money.
that no, and we want movies like this. We don't want this movie to be looked at as failure because, oh, it only made so much. But I'm like, well, you only left it in theaters like 3 weeks and you told people, so they're going to hold off and see it for free on their streaming service or spend six
Yeah.
bucks there. So it's a shame that studios just can't figure this stuff out, how to benefit the people that want to see it in theaters, and then just the
Mhm.
people that will just wait and not spend the money. So I think it hurts the product, to be honest, and it really could potentially kill movies because they don't give it a chance to really have a life at theaters. Oh well, we'll see how this
Mhm.
goes. The movie landscaping is weird, especially we know with the strike that there's going to be a lot of drought of content, and maybe this one they should have held on for
Yeah.
January, February, or take the Mario movie window. Why not May of or March of
Yeah.
next year? What's coming out anyways? Turtles would have been a perfect movie for it.
Exactly.
Well, that is our thoughts on the movie. I think you heard from us and you probably jibed that it's well worth your time, whether you're a fan or you're new to the franchise. I enjoyed it quite a bit. I laughed. I smiled. I enjoyed it. And John, because of you, you're probably a hard one to really bring around on, because you've seen so many iterations, but it sounds like you enjoyed it as well, with just maybe a mix of didn't love the theatrical showing that you got, though.
Yeah, I'm I'm sad that it's not going to be in theaters as long as it needs to be, but I am very excited that I'm in not even a month's time, I'm going to get to watch it again and again and again. So there, double-edged sword, but yeah, the viewing experience definitely could have been better.
Yeah. Excellent. Well, there we go. Folks, see the movie. And obviously, if we warned you earlier, you've seen it already. But if you had a chance, you liked what we said, and you were wondering if you should see it, go see it. I don't think we spoiled too much really put you on the edge that would deter you from it, because it's not what happened in the movie. It's how they did it and how the characters performed. So with that, John, thank you for joining us on this journey in the world of nerd. Tell people where they can find you.
Oh, thanks for having me. I always love coming on. Follow me on Twitter. X at John S. Bernardo. I don't really have anything going on right now when it comes to podcasts or comics. We used to have a show called Comics on the Spot where we made up comic books. You can still check that out. You can go to comicsonthepod.com and read all of our free comics. If you like heavy music, you can check out some music that I write. I play in a band called Warbreakers. You can find that on Spotify. Just type it up, and we got some new tunes coming out. But other than that, that's all I got. That's me.
Excellent. Well, thank you so much, John. It was fun. I'm glad you're like, when I talked about I was going to do this show and I was asking if there was any Turtles fan, you were like, yep, I'm in. So yeah, appreciate that. We had another person lined up, but they could not make it. So I'm glad to have you in this journey. You can follow me at TOxtra on all things X, Threads, whatever. But most likely I would like you to check out secretfriendsunite.com. That's where all of our content is, and you can check it out there. And there's links to our Patreon. That's patreon.com/secretfriendsu. Check us out there. Join our Discord if you want to have a good discussion about this movie, all things geek. We have a lively group there that loves to talk about all things nerd. So join that as well. So with that, I want to say thank you, John.
Thank you.
We'll talk again in many weeks. I'm sure there'll be something new to nerd out about.
I'll be here waiting.
Excellent. And remember, everyone, be the hero, not the villain.
This podcast is part of the Secret Friends Unite podcasting network. Visit secretfriendsunite.com for more great shows, articles, news, reviews, and more. Secret Friends Unite podcasts are available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and other podcast services around the world. If you'd like to be part of the conversation, you can join us on Facebook or our new Discord server, or follow at Secret Friends U on Twitter. Please subscribe to Secret Friends Unite on YouTube and visit our merch store at tpublic.com. Just search Secret Friends Unite. Thanks for listening.